I'd like to welcome you to the Coeur d'Alene School District 271 board meeting for April 2nd. Before we begin tonight, I just want to read a brief statement here. We'd like to acknowledge the tragic death of our dear friend and colleague, Mr. Troy Schuler. On behalf of the district, we extend our thoughts and prayers to Troy's family and friends, and we wish them peace as they journey through the grieving process. We also want to recognize our staff, students, parents, and community members who are hurting, and we want you to know that we share your pain. You can be certain that we, as a district, will continue to provide the support and resources necessary so that we can all begin to heal. I'd also like to thank everyone locally and regionally who's reached out with well wishes and offers of assistance. We're not sure what the past week and a half would have looked like without your love and help. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we'll go ahead and do the pledge now. If the gentlemen would please remove their hats, and everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, before we get going, I'll go ahead and introduce our participants up here for tonight's meeting. I'm going to go ahead and start at my far right with Mr. Chris Shipley, our Director of Finance and Operations, Ms. Lynn Town, Clerk of the Board, and Dr. Stan Olson, Superintendent. To my immediate left is Mr. Tom Hearn, our Vice Chair, Ms. Lisa May, Board Member, Ms. Tambra Pickford, Board Member, and Mr. Dave Eubanks, Board Member. My name is Casey Morrisroe, and I am the chair. Public comment on district-related items is scheduled near the start of the meeting. Please sign in on the sheet provided at the entrance door. Because of the diversity of issues, members of the board will not respond to public comment made during tonight's meeting. Instead, issues may be recorded and referred to the proper staff person for follow-up. Comments may also be submitted to the board in writing through our clerk. Thank you. Okay, board members, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes for March 5th, March 9th, March 15th, and March 19th, and March 21st?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, Ms. Town. Okay, we are going to hold off on our Invest, Inspire, Innovate, and Shining Star Awards this month and catch up next month. Is that right, Mr. Eubanks?
Yes.
Okay. So we are on to our student body reports, and we just have Lake City with us here tonight. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening, esteemed board chair, honorable trustees, Superintendent Olson, and district administration. My name is Kira Simpson, and I'm the ASB Vice President at Lake City High School. Also with me tonight are ASB President Val Lagasosa, ASB Treasurer Peyton Barber, and ASB Secretary Taylor Pickford. First and foremost, we want to convey our deepest condolences and support for our Lake City High School, for Coeur d'Alene High School, as they process the loss of Principal Schuler. Our hearts are with the entire CHS community, and we are there, and we are here for anything you guys may need. At Lake City, April is full of events and activities. Our juniors are preparing for SAT Day next Tuesday, and our college prep classes are headed out to their spring campus visits at Gonzaga, Whitworth, and Eastern Washington universities at the end of this month. ASB elections are held this month as well, so we will be excited to introduce you to the new ASB officers at next month's meeting. Our annual Mother-Daughter Tea will be on April 19th at 5 p.m., and we will feature Paint Buzz this year. So our senior girls and their moms will get to create a beautiful painting together, eat snacks, and have portraits taken. Lake City is also taking advantage of the relationships we built at Stuco State and hosting a regional spring dance on Friday, April 27th for all North Idaho high schools. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight, and we will see you next month.
Thank you, ladies. Mr. Twitchell, are you ready with the Coeur d'Alene Education Association report?
Well, you usually have a little bit more time to sit there and stress about this, but all right. Board members, Superintendent Olson, district employees, thank you once again for allowing me to be here and letting me ramble on about whatever I ramble on about. This past week, I was watching a talk show with my wife, and on it there was a young couple that were engaged, and the host of the show asked the young man, says, why are you going to marry her? And he got this really nice soft look on his face, and he says, well, because she's the reason I wake up in the morning, every morning. And so as I was watching the show with my wife, I turned to her and asked, am I the reason you wake up every morning? And she got this mean look on her face. Says, well, the way that you snore, you're the reason that I wake up about 10 times every night and in the morning. So love comes in many different forms. On the more serious note, though, over the break, I was looking around online. I found a website that kind of gave ratings and rankings of schools. And, looking at Coeur d'Alene School District and high in a lot of areas. But as we know in math, it was not that high. And I got thinking, though, is this really what school is about, what education is about? Are these almighty test scores what it's all about? And I would say that they do not really measure the effectiveness of a school or a community. As we've seen in the past couple of weeks, our community is extremely supportive and caring and loving and comes together when it has to be. We see it every 2 years when, because the state doesn't properly fund our schools, we have to go to the people of our community and ask for bonds and levies. And they overwhelmingly, thankfully, vote in favor of it. We see it when something bad happens and we have a community that must come together, and they do come together. And I would like to thank the businesses and individuals that all have come together in the past couple of weeks, because as I already mentioned, I would hate to see what it was like without that support. So thank you very much to everybody. And I'm not going to try to mention them all because I know I'd leave some out. Back to testing, though. Yes, math and English skills are absolutely necessary among the other things that are tested. But I would say, though, they are not what gets students career and college ready. What does get them ready are what we refer to as the soft skills, such as communication, critical thinking, leadership, positive attitude, teamwork, and a strong work ethic. These are the things that employers want, yet do not show up on standardized tests, nor are they really taught in all the curriculums, not just in our school district, but across the whole country. So why is this? I don't know. I've spoken to employers who state that they can teach just about anyone how to do a job, but these soft skills, either the person has them or they don't, and either the person wants to have them or they don't want to. What can the district do to better these soft skills in our students? I don't know. It has shown up, or has been shown that once these are emphasized, though, even the standardized test scores go up. Just something to think about, that perhaps somehow we can work these into our curriculum somehow, some way. Before break, the school board had a meeting regarding school safety as well, school safety and security as well as construction. And I would definitely like to thank the school board and the district for allowing myself to be there at that meeting and to be able to listen into what was going on. I think, as most of you know by now, I have a tendency to say what I'm thinking, and I've had some time to think about that, and so here's what I'm thinking. As I said, we are very thankful that I was able to be there, but we're also very thankful that the district has taken this issue seriously, as we all need to be taking these issues, safety and security, seriously. The students are our children and must be protected. If they don't feel safe and secure, they are not going to be able to focus on school at all, And then what's the point of them even showing up? There is no one right answer to solve all the problems, and we, the CEA, look forward to continuing working with the district to discuss these issues and come to what can hopefully be the right decisions for student safety and, in turn, student success. There is also discussion regarding bringing in another outside firm to do work that is already done by central office employees, and that has to do with the construction issues. There's a very strong perception in the district that whenever there is more work to be done in the classroom, the educators just have to deal with it and do what they can with what they're given at that time. On the flip side, the perception is that when there's additional work to be done at the district level, either more people are hired or an outside firm is hired to do the work. And believe me, we get it. There's a lot of work to do. Everybody is overworked, they're overloaded with work, and everybody wants more help with what's going on. But again, the perception is that classrooms are told there is no money for everything. There's no money for a classroom budget. Yet there is always money for the district office needs to make work less at this level. And again, whether it's true or not, that's the perception. And in many people's minds, perception becomes reality. We are very excited to be getting along with negotiations, which will be starting up very soon, and be working together with the district in a much more friendly environment. As mentioned before with perceptions, we are really hoping that this year the people of the district and the much deserved raises will not be an afterthought when it comes to budgeting. We are grateful that the district is welcoming us to the budget meetings and working together on this. And lastly, I would like to close with this. We live in a community that is full of loving and caring people. When it comes down to the bottom line, we all want to help each other out, but sometimes we don't know how or even that help is needed. It is not easy to ask for help. We live in a world where if you're physically hurting, well, of course you go to the doctor and get help. People all around can see that you're physically hurting, and they'll jump at the chance to help you with that. But if you're mentally hurting, the majority of us try to hide it. For some reason, we see this as not okay. But guess what? We are all battling something and can use some help. We just have to ask for it. We need to show our children and the students of the district that asking for help is okay. Myself, I'll fully admit, I'm on 2 different anti-anxiety medicines. I've shared this with my students, and I've seen the light kind of come on with them when they say, oh, I'm on that medicine too. And all of a sudden it becomes, okay, it's not just me. It's not just me that has this problem. I'm here to admit it, and I'm not ashamed of it. It took me quite a while before I went to the doctor to talk about it. In fact, it took my very loving wife to kick me in the rear multiple times and say, you better get to the doctor or I'm going to do something about it. And so I did. And it's helped immensely. We need not bury everything deep down and let it fester and get worse. We need to ask for help when it's needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Twitchell. Okay, we are at the time for public comment. I want to remind the public that while this is a meeting of the Board of Trustees that takes place in public, it is not a meeting with the public. It is a meeting of the board to conduct district business. The board does allow some limited public comment on district-related items. Those wishing to address the board during the public comment period are limited to 1 comment not to exceed 3 minutes. If you have additional comments that you would like to present to the board, you may provide those comments in writing through the clerk of the board, Ms. Lynn Town. Ms. Town will ensure that the board members receive the additional commentary. Please keep in mind that the board members will not respond to public comment. If I determine that an individual statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, or repetitive, I may terminate that speaker's privilege to address the board. Looks like we have one person signed up tonight, Mr. Steve Casey, who always goes too long.
Not always.
You've got a little better over this.
Tonight will
months.
be short. So, Chair Morrisville, members of the board, Superintendent Olson, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I come before you as a grandparent of 2 kids in the district. First, I have to have a disclaimer here. I'm not going to be nearly as transparent as Mr. Twitchell. that was kind of too much information, but maybe that's why she kicks you so much. I don't know, but anyway, first of all, I'd like to thank the board and Dr. Codlin and Ms. Wilson. I saw them this morning at darn it, at CHS, which was very heartwarming. I'll get it together. This always happens. I'm hopeful to hear tonight that our capital projects, land purchase negotiations with the City of Hayden, are moving forward smoothly with no issue. If not, then I'm expecting to hear what our secondary plans are. You have stated that your plans to build an elementary school on the Nexus site in Hayden will be finished with doors opening in the fall of 2019. You have also stated that you hope to have other land purchased soon that would accommodate an elementary school. If neither site is available in a timely manner and construction cannot be completed in time for the doors to open in the fall of 2019, I request that we relook our decision. I would suggest the doors open the beginning of the second semester of the 2019-20 school year at the site that addresses the growth in the northwest section of the district. Nexus students can choose to remain at that school. The immediate result will be the loss of 15 portable classrooms at Atlas, Skyway, and Ramsey. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. And Dr. Olson, you are up with your superintendent report.
Thank you very much.
There we go.
Two quick items, one of which is something that Bruce had discussed earlier about the interest-based bargaining process. Board members will have a comprehensive memo detailing different dates and different events and different activities, but I wanted to bring to the attention of all concerned three key dates in the negotiations process. One is April the 10th. That's coming up very quickly, which will be a pre-negotiations workshop with representatives of the association, the district, and the Board of Trustees to really do several things. One, from the feedback from CEA membership, from the board, from the staff, narrow the negotiations topics to a reasonable number. This does not forego the opportunity to discuss issues beyond a reasonable amount. In that, a second item that we have tentatively agreed upon was to create a monthly meeting process, a cooperative problem-solving process that will begin in October and meet on a monthly basis through April, that will do several things. Number one, give the parties a chance to come together and deal with issues that make them crazy, or certainly give them angst, whether that's on the instructional side or the leadership side or the board side, but a chance to identify those elephants in the room, to talk about them, and to basically come to agreement using an interest-based process on how we can do better in those particular areas. So that's item one. Item two, we will also take a look at the language in our current contract, which describes perhaps a negotiations process that is going to be revised to some degree, and on which we have to agree will be altered to accommodate this new interest-based process. And a third item is through this negotiations process, the association and the district will basically produce and direct to all concerned joint memoranda. In other words, rather than have a board side to negotiations and a teacher side to the negotiation, it's going to be one side. It's going to be agreed upon that the parties come together and do a joint negotiations memo that will update staff, board, administration, and community as to how the process is moving, what key issues are being discussed, and whether or not there's light at the end of the tunnel. It is the spoken desire of the parties, and this is the association, the board, staff, and administration, to have a contract before the end of the school year. And we are set to have 2 full-day negotiation sessions on April 26th and on May 10th. And there'll be additional information. As you know, those are public sessions and certainly open to those folks who have absolutely nothing better to do than come and see a negotiations process that actually is a quite interesting approach and a new approach to contract negotiations. So we'll be sharing additional information as time goes on. Our thanks to all of the parties, to the board for their willingness to, again, be transparent and open and direct in this process, to the association, who has brought a very strong IBB training team together to go through a couple of sessions already and for us to move forward with additional training in this area, and for the staff and administration that will also carry the process forward. So that's IBB. The second is our March 14th student walkout. Obviously, there's been a period of time between when that program transpired and our last regular board meeting. In short, what we wanted to say was thank you to our students and staff, to our SROs, to members of this community who made that day worthwhile, who made that experience worthwhile. I think one of our students put it best that said, this isn't schooling, this is education. And a chance for people to come together, show their respect for the Parkland incident, show their respect for each other in the discussions they had that day, and their continuing responsibility to grow in those discussions and those focal points, and being a responsible citizen, not only in this school district, but in this community. It was very well done because people chose it that way, and people came together that way to make that happen. And our thanks go out to all of you for that day and that experience. One item, and I'd ask the permission of the board, is many people in the community have asked for an update as to the work that not only took place following the loss of Mr. Schuler, but what's happened during the holiday, what happened today at Coeur d'Alene High School, and what the plans are to move forward. And we have great debts of gratitude to pay to Trina Caudle and Anna Wilson and a number, like Bruce said, if I start naming people, I'll get into trouble because there's so many people to name, but who have been on the forefront of planning with crisis intervention teams, with our SROs, with our staff, and our community. What we'd like to do, again, with the permission of the board, is just take a few moments and do a quick update, if that would be all right, as to the day and the steps forward.
Thank you, Superintendent Olson, and thank you, members of the board, for giving me just a few minutes to update you, not only on last week, but especially today and our activities at Coeur d'Alene High School. You may remember that over spring break, our community, as Bruce mentioned, showed tremendous support and outpouring of different agencies have reached out to us, not only from within our community, but from within the entire Northwest. So we're very appreciative. Panhandle Health partnered with Kootenai Health and Heritage Health and offered an event at the Kroc Center for Coeur d'Alene High School students and families. And that was on Tuesday during spring break, well attended and received. On site, they had mental health professionals to provide support to those families over spring break. Then on Thursday of last week at Lake City High School, they opened their auditorium for the community for a QPR training. QPR standing for question, persuade, and refer. It's a suicide prevention training, and that was last Thursday at Lake City. So those were a couple of events we had over spring break to further support the Coeur d'Alene High School community at large. Today, we really weren't quite sure what to expect, and so what we did is maybe overly planned, which was a good position to be in today. We started with a staff meeting this morning at 7, where staff were able to just regroup and support each other, enjoy a breakfast, again, provided from a wonderful community partner, and also kind of touch base about what supports we would be offering not only today but throughout the week for our staff and students. At the beginning of first period, Assistant Principal Kais read a statement over the intercom, acknowledging again the tragedy and how students may be feeling, and then letting them know that throughout the week they could access community support, mental health professionals, crisis team members throughout the building, housed primarily today out of the library. So as I mentioned, we started with a very strong presence. We had our partners from North Idaho College crisis team, joined our own internal crisis team. We had Spokane crisis team members, school psychologists, counselors, and we even had 10 roving subs available today if a staff member needed a moment to step out of their classroom and be covered. We had those supports available. So we actively patrolled the halls. Today we saw roughly 40 to 50 students who sought support or whom we reached out to. We, like I said, we're being vigilant, making sure we were watching for those pockets of kids or noticing any reactions that might be a little out of the norm. But really, Libby Kais said it best. Our families, she felt like our families have really supported their students well over the break. The students came back, had time to process, and like I said, we were a little bit overly staffed today, which was a good problem to have. At the end of the day today, Coeur d'Alene High School families received an email just letting them know how the day went, providing them with some informational materials about the grief process and about online resource to SPAN, which is a Suicide Prevention Action Network. And we have a North Idaho branch here in town. And then also alerting families that we do have another QPR, and again, that's a suicide prevention training coming up. So it's open to the entire community. We're really, of course, targeting our Coeur d'Alene High School families if needed, but the whole community is welcome. Will be on April 12th, beginning at 6:30 at Coeur d'Alene High School in the auditorium. And then, again, as I mentioned, after meeting with the high school team today, the admin team, and a few of the teacher representatives, we will continue to have crisis team members support at the school throughout the week and into early next week as needed. So just a brief update on our activities in the last week and a half. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Dr. Olson, anyone have any questions for either of those folks? Okay. So trustee comments. Trustee Hearn, I believe you are signed up to also talk about the student walkouts.
Yes, I just have a statement here I'd like to read. Student protests over gun violence on February 14th at the Coeur d'Alene high schools were handled very well by administration, in my opinion. There were complaints by some people in the community that by allowing students to walk out and hand out some literature at Coeur d'Alene High School, that there could have been a violation of Board Policy 3250 involving the distribution of possibly partisan materials. I have reviewed the policy and I question if that policy was violated, and if so, it certainly was unintentional. I observed the walkout at the Coeur d'Alene High School on February 14th, and the concern there was to allow the students to exercise their free speech rights, which they don't lose when they enter high school, and to keep them safe. I think there could have been much bigger problems if we had tried to deny these students the right to protest in the manner that they did. The students conducted themselves admirably that day. Coeur d'Alene High School property borders the Kootenai County Fairgrounds, and if people recall, a fairly short distance away from the school, a number of people with assault rifles were conducting a counter demonstration to the student walkout. While no one from that group threatened the students, it was helpful that we had considerable police presence at the high school that day. I talked to administration and the principal at the high school on the 14th and afterwards, and they told me that their concern was student safety and to give the kids an opportunity to express their concerns. Going forward, the school board and administration, in my opinion, will need to make a decision about how future walkouts or student protests should be handled at our schools. I'm hoping that the student groups interested in promoting their causes will cooperate with administration and try to find a time to show their concerns and demonstrate that does not involve disrupting class time. I'd like to see future demonstrations be before or after school or during the lunch hour. And that's my opinion only as one trustee. Although I think the walkout on February 14th was an unusual situation with a national basis to it, I am concerned that a precedent could be established if we allow walkouts to occur regularly during school hours. Numerous student groups, besides the student group concerned about gun violence, could expect that they too should be able to walk out and disrupt class without any consequences. I'm not opposed to free speech and student demonstrations, and it is the student's constitutional right. But I don't think administration in the future should be expected to accommodate demonstration during the hours the students should be in class. I also think, if possible, we should review materials handed out by student groups beforehand to make sure that they are not unduly partisan. There has been a request for outside groups to register students to vote. Since we're talking mostly seniors who will be 18 by November, I'd prefer such voter registration be conducted by students or staff. However, I don't have a problem with voter registration by outside groups as long as they are clearly nonpartisan, such as the League of Women Voters. Freedom of speech, maintaining the orderly educational function of the school, and student safety should be the primary concerns going forward. I'm hoping we can accomplish these goals with the help of student groups interested in demonstrating their concerns about student safety or other issues. As I already stated, I thought the administration at the high schools and the district office handled the events of February 14th well, and I think the school board needs to be clear about our expectations to the students and community in future walkouts or political activities. Students agreeing to demonstrate outside of regularly scheduled class time in the future would be helpful to maintain order in their school, their safety, and equal rights of all students, including those choosing not to demonstrate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Hearn. All right, board members, we are on to our consent agenda. Excuse me. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda, items A through G?
So moved.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, thank you. We are into action items. Mr. Shipley, welcome to the podium, sir. I'll let you take it over with our finance report. Is your mic on, Chris?
Yes, now we're live. These are our usual reports, and what I wanted to focus on today here is that in that column, this goes through February, and in our February foundation payment, we have essentially we have gotten close to 90% of our revenue. So we know where we are at far as revenue goes for our district. And what I want to do later on here, I have some highlights, is that if you slide down on that transfers out, there we go. It's hard to see. I'm actually going to have a close-up of this shot of that 900,000. We're going to talk about that transfer out figure here. So if the booth could go to the slides. Thank you. All right, this is going to be much easier to see this way. I will slide through here. So what has happened? This is a cutout of our promises that we made And what I want to point out to you is that that first bulleted point, the bus purchases with 3-point harnesses, safety belts. Those guys are actually 6 school buses for each year. That was a promise that was made. Earlier this year, we purchased those buses, and they are on their way. Arrival time for them is scheduled to be later in the month, this April. And to get to the financing part of them, that is a close-up shot. $913,744. The majority of that dollar amount comes from our transfer, here we go, to our bus depreciation fund, $763,948. That's a precise number. We didn't pull that number just out of the air. That number came from the levy, $600,000, and the remaining part from the state, $163,948, to come up with our total. The $163,948, that's actually an Idaho admin compliance rule. So the money that we got from our foundation report from the state went into our general fund, and we were required to transfer that over to our bus, and we call it the bus depreciation fund. So this next number, it's going to look really close, but this actually has more to do with correlation than it actually does with causation. So the bus purchase that we made this year, we paid for with our levy funds, $560,000. And what we also have, we had prior purchases for buses, and those were financed with a lease option. So this year, lump sum, prior year, lease option payments. So paying for our buses cash flow out this current fiscal year, it's going to be $760,000. Now, next slide, we're going to go subject change. So we talked about it earlier today, and bringing it up again, budget subcommittee. We have 9 members, and we have a broad representation of the district. We have the district office, we have people from the school administration, board of trustees, and the CEA. Purpose for this committee, we're going to provide information on the budget process. We're also going to gather input on budget philosophy. So we're going to show the structure to our process of putting together the budget. With this process, there are 3 key dates. The first date we have set. It's coming up actually this Wednesday, April 4th. We have 2 more, and that's going to be over the deficit and over the budget process, an overview. April 30th during that week, to be determined, we're going to go over the revenues. At this time, the state legislation, they've completed their working papers. They have given it to the districts. They also have what they call the Legislation Roadshow. There's an online viewing from the Boise, and there's also, excuse me, they'll also be up here at the Coeur d'Alene Resort. So 2 of our action items during that April 4th meeting will be to set a date for talking about revenues and to set a date where we'll be discussing expenditures in May. And that's the budget subcommittee. Now, a reminder, we also have some compliance dates coming up, and the budget key dates for them, we have a budget hearing, adoption, the ending of our fiscal year, and then, of course, our annual meeting. I kept it short for the financial section, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Our next section is going to be going over the capital projects.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Shipley on the finance report or the information that was in today's packet?
The question, just simply, you said this, the 6 new buses were $560,000.
Correct.
So they were a little cheaper. I mean, they do have seatbelts in them, but they were cheaper than we were originally told they were going to be $100,000 a piece, right? But they were less than that.
Yeah, so we have 6 buses, and the actual dollar amount I think is $4 less than that. It came out to like $559, $964. So seat belts on buses, the cost, and we asked our vendor there, and really it was just a few $1,000s. It wasn't tens of thousands, it was only a few thousand.
Okay.
So the price difference between a bus equipped with seat belts versus not, almost a moot point.
That's a change from what we're thought it was going to be a year and a half ago. So thank you for that information.
Yeah, so that landscape has changed.
And that negligible cost is only when you have it done at the factory when the bus
That's
is new.
correct. So if you were to retrofit, anytime you retrofit, more expensive. So because this has come as a pre-option, not as expensive to add it as an afterthought. Katie, did you have something to say?
Well, and I just want to add that the buses are being purchased with cash this time, and the prior bus purchases were leased, so there was a bit of an interest cost for those other buses, so that we're avoiding this time around.
Okay. All right.
This is a very different conversation than we had
So it's
just
more now.
3 and 4 years ago, I'm happy to say. Right? Thank you.
I'm happy too.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Shipley, on the enrollment report, it was a little bigger bump than normal, I think, month. Is that just because of semester and those sorts of changes where we're seeing rollouts? I guess it wasn't a bump, it was a decrease, but, or do you know on that?
Correct. So as year goes through, if I'm understanding this correctly, we do find that there is some attrition to the enrollment numbers, and so that has been playing out.
Yeah, can I follow up on that? So is the number higher than normal, or is it about average?
It's about averages as we had expected. So we haven't really broken any trend lines with enrollment. It hasn't been wildly increased more than we expected.
I just mean
or
the number of students that aren't. There was a decrease in the number of high school students. I think it was it 36? Does that seem larger than normal?
I think a lot of it is because of the semester changers. So you've got the early, I mean, that's what I figured it was, but
Yeah.
you have kids that early graduate and
Yeah. Do we
sorts of
do we
things.
track them, or do we know? Do you know where they?
So I just pulled up last March, and we lost 42 high school students between the 2 high schools for that enrollment report. So I think it's looking like that may be a
it was
trend.
less, 36 this year.
I'll pull one more year here.
36 plus 8.
22
But you
the
added
year
8
prior,
eventually.
so.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're in line. And also at the district office, we also track this weekly. We look at a weekly attendance report weekly to see if there's anything that's trending out. Are we properly tracking our students? If in case we miss something, as you know, this gets reported back to the state. And of course, our ADA is a major factor in how our district is funded.
I'm mostly worried about where the students are from that perspective. Yeah.
Turn this thing on. It's on. Actually, we've been tracking this trend, and since I started the district, it's quite common. Usually, after our semester ends in February, we will lose students at the high school level. A lot of those students will go on to venture, and so you'll notice sometimes our venture numbers will go up. We do experience some dropouts at that time. They may go to Kootenai Bridge Academy. So we usually, after the semester, have a drop, and it happens a little bit every year.
Okay. If there's nothing further, I'll have Mr. Shipley move on to our capital construction update.
All right, so if we can go to the packet slides. Thank you. So this is our reporting package. We're going to get this every month. And again, I like to point out that this is our control document here, that we don't have any outside tables that are being kept. We don't have different figures. These are all following in line. And coming up, I'm going to have a boots on the ground report from Brian. And most of the expense right now has been primarily given out to the architects and engineers. And now as the season is getting warmer and school is getting ready to be let out, we're going to have more and more actual boots on the ground. Fences have been going up, as if you drive by, you can see them. And then if the booth can go back to my slides for the government, for the contracting, there we go. Thank you. So again, this is an overview. These are our projects. Last month, we had one open item. We had the Lakes Middle School that needed to go out for bid. That did come back. The bids were really high. And so we're looking at other options. We haven't accepted any of the bids for the Lakes Middle School. We'll get into more detail with that when Brian comes up. Again, following policy, we do have contingencies out there. So we're not borrowing from one fund to pay for another. So for example, the Lakes Middle School, it came in really high. We're not going to borrow from Lake City or from the Coeur d'Alene High School to help fund that. We're going to deal with the landscape as it comes to us. This is where we're at with contingency today. But of course, that Lakes Middle School number, as you know, we've passed on those. But we haven't dipped into our contingency yet. Chances are we will. I'm happy to report, though, that we do have a healthy contingency balance and a healthy contingency percent. Again, following policy, another good reminder, we're not covering one project with another. And now I'd like to turn this over to Brian for a little more boots on the ground update. Thank you, Brian.
Good evening, Board. Things are going real good with our construction projects right now. During the break, Dalton Gardens, we got all our fences up, everything cleared out, and they are starting to dig in the ground right now. So that was a big thing. Coeur d'Alene High School, if you drove by, we've gotten rid of 3 of our portables, and we have 1 left. I think that's leaving tomorrow. They just have to get the wheels underneath it. So that was a big issue, and we got that going. We're still working on getting the building permit there. We have a couple little details, and we figure that we'll have that all squared away by the end of the week. So we're doing good there. We also have skinned all the ground in the front entryway. We have blocked off the student entryway in the front, and they're being routed off to the east side right now. And things are going good over there, so we're excited about that. The big one right now that was Lake City High School. During the break, they rerouted part of the sewer line and all of the water line. And other conversations you've heard us talk about, the toughest part of these projects is when you get into the dirt, because you don't know what's down there. Well, things went very well for us. We didn't see any problems, no change orders came of it. So, and then today I was over there, they're laying in, ready to do the rest of the sewer line, and everything was dug out, and it looks like we're going to get out of there without having any change orders, which is huge. So, yep, things are going good. Deanne did a great job. I never pick colors, and she got colors picked out last week, and so things are going good. The furniture has all come in. We've got ready to start sending out the POs right now for all of our furniture updates, and they're all under budget, so we're excited about that too. The one bad thing about the whole thing is that construction prices are going up, and Lakes unfortunately got hit the hardest. We are at about a 24% over budget on that project. They came in $559,000 over. by looking at the project, there was not one single thing that we could pull out because everything is really worked together. You know, you're going to put in this, but to do that, you had to take this down. So it was like a domino effect. So right now, we are going to shelf the project. We're going to take a look at this fall. We're going to watch how construction goes on, and revisit it later. One of the things, though, that we are looking at doing is that the gym floor, the old existing gym floor, is that we're getting numbers right now to have that done. And it's outside of the GC. We can do this in another different way with state law. And it's pretty encouraging. Right now, we got a number of 140,000, 144. And today, I was told if they can get in early, they'll knock $7,000 off of that. So I talked to Jeff, and Jeff is putting things together over there, seeing if that could be possible. So we might be able to move forward on getting that gym floor and those bleachers replaced. That'd be a nice thing to get out of our hair. It's just like last year we did the lockers in the summer. This way we can get the gym floor done. So something we don't have to do down the road. And it doesn't affect the rest of it. So the way he's doing this, by the way, is he's talked to the Boys and Girls Club about using their gym during the day. So I think it's all going to work out. Anything else?
Brian, on that project, are you thinking you'll send it out to bid again as the design currently stands, or are you thinking of modifying the design and then sending it back out to bid?
Well, I don't really want to modify the design. They need every piece of it. And I think everybody really feels strong about that. That's why to take out a chunk of it, it just couldn't do it. I think the thing to do is that we're going to be up against, there's a theory out there that hopefully this fall things are going to even out again. The bidding climate was so tough on this one, they didn't even have an electrical number on bid day. The contractors just put in a number, and I've never heard of that before. Everybody is just loaded up with work, and they just didn't have any room for any more work. So that's just like the wood floor right now. As I was talking to the guy, his number on bid day, if he had to do it during the summer, was going to be $200,000. But if we can get in before school gets out, he'll knock $60,000 off of that because he's totally loaded up during the summertime. He has work all over the area. So it's no one's fault. It's not a greed thing. It's just reality. These people are working on bidding these jobs on overtime or even double time now. And so this is what we're up against. I'm hoping that everybody gets their work done, things go well for us. This fall, this whole thing slows up a little bit, and we can be able to get some better numbers come this fall. The big thing is, like Steve Casey has talked about, is because of the new elementary school that we're trying to build too. That's a concern, because of costs.
Do you have an updated construction timeline for the new elementary school when we might be able to break ground?
No, we're still working. This week, at the end of the week, like Chris has mentioned, is that we're going to be getting our traffic back, the survey on that, and then also our evaluations. And then as soon as we can, we'll sit down with the city to negotiate how we're going to do the whole property thing. And if that all goes well, then we're off and running. Scott Fisher and Architects West, they're going as far as they can go at this point. So
are you thinking sending it out to bid May, June, July, or
probably be July in the fall of the year, which is about where we'd give it. Then we'd give that full year to get going on it. So it should do well. We just have to see what everything. It's a tough times right now.
It'll go. I mean, if we had a hard time this month bidding out lakes, do you think it'll be a different environment in July? I guess that's what worries me a little bit.
If they get their work done and they don't have a lot of winter work going into winter, then we'll be all right. If it stays the way it is right now or increases with this kind of a bidding climate, we will probably be not all right. So we'll just have to watch and see how everything goes. We'll know more probably about June and July, how things are going. This community is pretty good as subcontractors and contractors of letting us know what's going around. So,
Do you know what the potential, latest we could start would be to finish the project for fall of 2019?
yeah, I think that if we get out in July, everything would be fine. If they can get going in August, September, and we have, fairly good fall, our normal falls, the main thing is that we can get all the block up and get your roof on, and then after that, they can go and work all winter long, and which is really what they want. They want these winter projects so they can work all winter. And so, but you have to get that part done before the frost comes in and stuff. So I think that we're going to be okay. I hope so. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah. I just started imagining where we would send those students if if we didn't open fall of 2019, it would be a real conundrum.
Yeah, it will. So there's a little room at Atlas, but not much. It'd be tough. I hear you. And Mr. Twitchell, you had talked earlier about the thing about the construction deal that he talked about. Just to let you know that there's all kinds of ways of doing that. And you don't have to spend a lot of money for outside people to come in and do that. That presentation that you saw was just one way of doing it. So, and as soon as we can, I think that with Lakes Middle School, it gives us an opportunity as soon as we get our hands around some of this stuff, is if the board would like to sit down and they could talk about some more of this different ways of doing construction projects. The world is changing, and it's faster and it's more technical, and so I think that this is something that we can take a look at down the road. So, anything else? Looks like I made Stan a little nervous over there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin and Mr. Shipley. Okay, item C is some policy for information. My note says here, it's from Anna Wilson, which this is Parent and Family Engagement 2420 and 2420P. Sorry to catch you off there.
Okay.
And this is on page 83, it looks like, in our packet.
Is this on? There we go. So basically on that particular policy, we are required by title compliance to get parent input on that particular policy before bringing it to the board. So ISBA rewrote the policy in its entirety. We took the rewrite to our parent constituents at our annual district title event, which was held, it seems like forever ago, the beginning of March, and they had very limited input. They were happy with the policy as was written by ISBA.
Okay, and this is for information and it'll be out for, excuse me, for comment for the next 30 days, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Board members, any questions for Ms. Wilson on this? Okay, I'm seeing none. You're off the hook.
Thank you.
And I will turn it over to Dr. Nelson now, who's got a pretty cool new course proposal.
Yeah, at least I think so, Chair Morris-Rose, Superintendent Olson, and members of the board. Tonight in your packet, you'll find a new course proposal presented by Lake City High School. A little bit of background, if you have not experienced the Outdoor Studies program at Lake City High School, it is a cool expeditionary program where students are learning the practices of language arts, mathematics, science, and social studies out in the field. They believe that another elective would help bolster the program, so they have proposed to you tonight survival science. It's an opportunity for students to learn both earth science and life science standards through the skills of survival in northern Idaho. So you'll see this coverage of standards in your packet, as well as a little bit of background about the course. This would be an elective course available to all students in freshman through the senior year.
Okay, any questions for Dr. Nelson on this course?
Both high schools, did you say, or was it just
The course is being proposed by Lake City High School. If approved by the board, it would be available throughout the entire district. So all 3 high schools would have access to the course. Keep in mind, though, that there is a proposed cost associated with materials for the course. That would be on the second page of the proposal. The building is requesting, I'm going to say, roughly about $60 worth of instructional materials per student. So certainly there would be some financial impact that we would have to absorb as part of the district.
How do those costs work into policy? What's that policy about can't charge for certain things that are academically required?
Right, the cost would not be passed on to the student. Our district would have to come up with the funding to be able to purchase
so it's not
material.
a pass on to the students for...
That's correct.
Okay, I just wondered. Thank you.
So we would have to come out of next year's fiscal allocation.
Okay, any other questions for Dr. Nelson on this? All right, we're trucking right along. We are at Coeur d'Alene Connects.
Yes, Chair Morris-Rowe, I'd like to give you a little bit of background before we launch this widely this next Tuesday at the Upbeat Breakfast. We have talked to you previous about our work with students through career cruising, and we work with students starting in middle school through high school to develop a 4-year plan, but really an all-encompassing view of how students are matriculating through our process so that by the time that they receive our diploma, they do have a firm understanding of what they'd like to do, where they'd like to go, and how they plan to accomplish their goals. Well, Coeur d'Alene Connects is another piece to that, and we're pleased to be able to launch this with a community partner. We'll explain who that is coming up soon. But this is going to allow us to build a talent pipeline, not only with our current students, but also by engaging our community as well. For example, Mr. Morris-Rowe, you are a business owner, and maybe somebody in our community would like to be a business owner, a small business owner such as yourself. You would have the ability to open up a Coeur d'Alene Connects portal that would not only publicize your business, but you would also have the opportunity to reach out to anybody in our school community who has said that they have an interest in small business ownership. You'd be able to have a mentoring relationship, not in person, but on a message board. And you'd be able to discuss back and forth about work hours, conditions, expectations, background, education, and otherwise. That portal, we are hoping to have about 300 community mentors in a variety of different areas. And as students go through their profiles and start matching up their career paths of what they would be interested in doing, then they will have an immediate matchup. So not only are we engaging our students in the process and showing that the work that they're doing is real, we're also engaging those in our community who consistently tell us that they need to have better communication with our future workforce. Coeur d'Alene Connects is live now at cdaconnects.org. And very soon we'll be launching this so that anybody in our community can sign up. We put them through a series of vets and background checks to make sure that they will be value add for our students. And then at that point, they do have the ability to share their expertise and become a resource for our students along the way. So for our board, we wanted to give you a little heads up that this is all coming. It's very exciting that we can take the work that we're doing in the classroom and start burgeoning it on the outside looking in. And again, we have high expectations for how this tool is going to be used not only by our students, but by our community.
Okay. Questions for Dr. Nelson on this?
I guess since you mentioned it, the partnering piece, is that to help you facilitate the program, or what role will the partner have?
Well, the lead partner within our community is actually going to help us facilitate getting those mentorships. Okay. That'll be the number one thing. So we've already engaged conversations with a local community organization who has their feel into the community. And again, the biggest piece to pulling this off is going to be having a wide variety of people in there. We've already reached out to our chambers of commerce, our Jobs Plus, and United Way, and others. So we have a lot of those pieces already where we want this to be kind of a slow rolling ball. But at the same time, we've already engaged a large organization who I think will be able to help us even further. We're just finalizing some of the pieces first.
Where'd the concept come from, Dr. Nelson?
This is part of Career Cruising. And when we purchased Career Cruising, we knew that when we were going down this process, that it isn't enough to be able to have kids just do career exploration or job searches or university searches. We knew that the real application is going to be making connections. That's why we do Senior Project. It isn't for people to just do a paper or to do a presentation. It's to prepare them for what lies next. This is going to be another level to that. So imagine now that Senior Project having really a third wheel where this portfolio is going to be created based on their experiences and interactions with a member of our community. It's pretty nice. So it is a component of Career Cruising. It is already in use around our country, and all we've done is rebrand it all together so that it makes sense. And now we're going to be doing the big push into the community, and we'll ask for your Rolodex to be opened up to identify your friends and family to be able to help a part of it. If anybody has a Rolodex anymore, does that make sense? Yeah. Your Google Contacts file, maybe it's something like that. Okay. We'll ask to thumb through it.
And so do I.
So it's a big shocker there. Okay, any other questions for Dr. Nelson on this? Okay, thank you, Dr. Nelson. We'll see you in a few minutes. We should have reordered, so we could just kept you there at once. But okay, board members, we're almost to the end here. Item F is on page 103 of our packet, and it's an action item regarding the district boundary revisions. And just for refresher, since we're coming off spring break, we met in this room a few weeks ago with our counterparts from Post Falls School District to discuss, I think what that night really kind of turned into a common sense boundary approach. It seemed like that word was stated over and over and over again. And at the end of that meeting, we collectively and individually as boards said kind of the next step was for us boards to talk about it and decide if we want to move forward with adjusting that boundary. So that's what the action item is on the agenda tonight. So I guess really what we're looking for is a direction or approval of the board to go ahead and move forward and continue to have those discussions with Post Falls. And Ms. Town, make sure I'm right here, but there's a motion to request that be done under 33-307.
I think we pulled that out.
Okay.
And just would go with
just the top motion, right? Okay.
The first motion that was written, that could have been an option as well, but I believe after discussion that the first motion is the most appropriate at this time.
Okay. So really what we'd be doing is, with board's approval, would be directing Superintendent Olson, and it looks like myself here to meet again with our counterparts at Post Falls to keep the ball moving. And I think that the process or the idea behind that conversation would be to choose which path we want to recommend to our boards. And so then we'd come back again to the boards and get approval and probably have some language from our attorneys to move forward. The two paths, it's 33-307 or 33-308 is the Section Idaho Code. The difference between the two is one requires a public vote and one does not.
Okay, so I make a motion to proceed with the boundary revisions and direct the superintendent and board chair to meet with their counterparts from Post Falls School District to discuss the process.
And I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Casey, can we make a quick comment on that now, though? Can we request some more information before we discuss it again at the board meeting as far as property valuations and some sort of comment from the developers in that area, what they might expect as far as growth, student growth, family growth, number of houses, how many years will they build out their communities?
Sure. I will make a note of it, and I'm sure, I think we have some of that information on property values and tax impact and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
we confirm.
If there was a tax impact, to make sure that we've disclosed that prior to the meeting.
So we had property valuations, tax implications, build out timeline, kind of a, that might be a little more subjective.
Because I
but-
think it goes into the conversation, you know, this is definitely the right move for our communities, but it might require that we will be looking at more bonds in the future. So I would just like to make sure we're starting the conversation early and we're aware of impact.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else? All right, Dr. Nelson, I think we are back to you.
Back down here this time. Chair Morris Rowe, Superintendent Olson, and members of the board, we presented to you Establishing Modern Europe. This would be a single semester course at Lake City High School, which replaces their semester world history course. The course has been available. It's been signed off by their colleagues at Venture and at Coeur d'Alene High School. No public comments have been received.
Okay, if there's no questions for Dr. Nelson on this, we would need a motion to approve the new course proposal as presented for Establishing Modern Europe for Lake City High School.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. Did you say this would take the place of world history?
Correct. Their current world history course is divided over 2 semesters. So they would have 2 single semester courses, one called Establishing Modern Europe, and the other being the history of Africa and Asia. That has already been reviewed by you. But remember that world history is being reallocated out of humanities, so it gives it more of a historical approach rather than a humanistic approach.
Good.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nelson. It's been moved and seconded. If there's no further questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. We're into board reports already, so we're almost done. Committee reports, do we have anything, long-range planning? I know we're gonna get the demographic information that's presented to long-range planning, I believe, at our workshop.
We're still working on that. I haven't confirmed with them yet, but Steve will probably give his recommendation to the board next month, I'm guessing. We've wrapped up work for this year, and we're anxious and ready to start
Wrapped it
next
up.
year. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay. And then I think the other committees we've kind of heard from already tonight, or heard about. Important dates coming up. Some of these are old. So on the 16th, so 2 weeks from tonight, we have a workshop. Is that 4 o'clock? 4 o'clock. And we're anticipating a couple hours on that one, so probably 4 to 6-ish. Other than that, there's a lot of other things going on that'll be in our weekly memo. So if there's nothing further, meeting adjourned.
We can't do that. We're supposed to be here another hour and a half, aren't we? This is crazy.
Well, you stay, and we'll all leave.
Oh.
All right, good night.
This is a record setter, folks.